What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Hogmolly Hustle. So, Super Wild Card Weekend was a success. Had a lot of exciting outcomes, had a lot of not so exciting outcomes, but interesting nevertheless. As always, here I am with Austin. We're going to break down all of these games and a little preview for next week, the upcoming week, the divisional. But before we get started, if you tune into this and you happen to like what we're talking about, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all the things we have coming up. If you agree or disagree with anything we say, let us know in the comment section, whoever that may be. And we're on. Okay, Austin. I didn't hit on all my picks. So it turns out picking a lot of the home teams worked out for this week.
I was 5-1. Dallas let me down.
Yeah.
That was the one that I struggled with the most because I felt like the 49ers were a really solid team. I just trusted Dak more than Jimmy G, especially in Dallas. But it's all right. I'll take 5-1.
Yeah. Well, one team that let me down specifically, I talked about the Patriots and Bill Belichick in the playoffs, and the Raiders going against the Bengals. Those teams let me down there. They're exciting games. Well, the Bengals and Raiders were exciting. The Patriots, Bills, not so much. So let's go ahead and get started with the Raiders and Bengals. So this is another one of those that was really, really tight. We looked at that and we said, gosh, you could flip a coin. And the game really played like that. Even though the Bengals won 26-19, it was not really a blowout. It was not really ever away from the Raiders. There were a couple of times in that game where the rest of the Raiders didn't really help Derek Carr. There was one instance where they downed a ball at the 2-yard line instead of letting it go out of bounds or touching it as you're out of bounds or letting it go into the end zone. Pretty much anything other than the way it happened would have been better. And that really stunted any sort of heat they had going. And then, of course, Joe Burrow played really well. And the Bengals come away with the win. But that was a close game, and people are trying to roast Derek Carr and Bisaccia for the way that game ended. I just don't think you can. It was a good game. Just things didn't go the way they wanted. What do you think?
I think you have to admire the Raiders' perseverance throughout this crazy season. Head coach gets fired. You're bouncing around from the Henry Ruggs situation to the Gruden situation, and you still finish 10-7, and you're a touchdown away from going to the divisional. So, they dealt with quite a few injuries during the season in various positions. So, credit to them for being perseverant. In football, you can't sit there and say, well, we don't have this guy, we don't have this guy. The Titans didn't do that, and look at them. They got the 1 seed because they rallied around their guys and realized that one person doesn't make an entire team. So a lot of credit to the Raiders for what they did this season. My biggest takeaway from this game is that this was a growing moment for Joe Burrow, and he is growing up before our very eyes. We've talked about him this year, how the Bengals have been one of the surprise teams this season, one of the great stories of this season. But just in his progression as a quarterback, you kind of see last year's rookie year, taking some baby steps along the way. He's kind of a teenager in that metaphor now. Like he's not the new kid on the block. He's got a playoff win. He's learning how to read an NFL defense. It's like he gets better weekly. It's really exciting to see as a football fan. Love Joey B ever since his days at LSU. So I'm excited for their game today versus the Titans.
Right, this should be a big one. I saw a really good segment on Good Morning Football. I don't know if you saw it, but they're talking about how nobody wants the Titans to win. Nobody wants to hear about the Titans as a 1 seed. Nobody really gives them a chance going forward because they're not exciting. Nobody cares about them. But they are really good. And I think that Vrabel doesn't get the credit he deserves with what he's put together in Tennessee. Everybody says, well, he's just like a defensive guy. He's okay. He's just a former Patriot player who went to Ohio State, got a lot of coaching chops from there. He's not that good. But I think he absolutely is one of the best coaches in the league with what he's done, especially this year. Without Derrick Henry, they still performed really well. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, who were their replacement backs? I know they had AP who came over mid-season. Um,
They've had
Deion
several.
Lewis still there? I don't.
No, Deion Lewis is definitely gone. They have Darrington Evans never really got in the field.
Dante Foreman.
Dante Foreman. Now he's a guy that played really well for them down the stretch, and he's a guy that has a similar body type to Derrick Henry, and people want them to bring him back as a backup. He's very young. I think he's still like 24, 25, something like that.
It's been
So he could have a second. He could have a second life in Tennessee, which would be great. Coming out of Texas. So, and Derrick Henry's back. He's starting, so that's going to be interesting. Well, we'll wait for the previews, but this is going to be a very interesting game. And you talk about a maturing moment for Joe Burrow. This is a really big game for him, legacy-wise, if he can win this one. But yes, Raiders, Bengals, I think both these teams are in good hands. I think that Derek Carr solidified who he is, and the kind of quarterback he is. I lost my thought there.
Think about Burrow in Cincinnati and just the type of team that Cincinnati's had for the last 25 years. Not a ton of excitement, not a ton of, players that you can buy their jerseys and be super proud to wear them. And, that they haven't had that guy. Like Dalton was kind of that guy. Carson Palmer was kind of that guy. Ocho Cinco, Geno Atkins. They've had some different guys, but never anybody that has had the personality of Joe, and never anybody that has won the way that Joe has won. And so if he wins against the Titans, I mean, he's already going to be a legend in Cincinnati because they just haven't been as blessed the last 20 years or so as earlier on in their franchise's history. So you're going to see a ton of Burrow jerseys in that city.
Absolutely. And I think that when Carson Palmer was there, it was different. When Andy Dalton first got there, it was different. I think now you're starting to feel that buzz again. Cincinnati fans have been waiting, and I think this could be the guy they got. And we'll see what happens going forward. They got a tough game this weekend against the Titans. I'm excited for that one. Next up, we got one that kind of got away from the Patriots. Not too surprising when you saw everything. We talked about the weather, how that played a role. And with the weather not hitting, it benefited the Buffalo Bills. And they were able to come away with this game pretty handily. I applaud Mac Jones for the way he played all year. And it's weird how much flack he gets just for being the Patriots quarterback because he's a success story. No one, absolutely no one, wanted Mac Jones in the draft process. Everybody said he's like the fifth best quarterback. He might not even be a pro quarterback. Why would you even want this guy? Patriots taking, everybody's laughing, and he ends up playing the best out of all the quarterbacks. Now, you can talk about system, you can talk about coaching and all of that, but bottom line is he's the one making the throws, he's the one making the plays, he's the one running the team. That's a pretty big job for a rookie with an offense that's not easy.
Especially with a bar that's set so high in Foxborough. I mean, regardless of what Mac does in his career, the name Brady is always going to come up. Even though he did it directly, fill in Brady's absence, right? They had a year in between, but even though That's who he's going to be compared to, just because Tom was there for 2 decades.
Yeah. And when he played in some of those big games, Mac Jones played pretty well. In this game, not so much. The tough game, all the circumstances. A rookie quarterback hasn't won a playoff game since Russell Wilson, I believe, which is pretty impressive. That shows you just how tough it is. I do think the Patriots are in good hands. There's a lot of people that are jumping on Bill Belichick saying, see, it was all Tom Brady. Before Tom Brady, Belichick was nothing. I thought, I think some people that are saying this weren't alive when he was elsewhere. But when you look at the statistics, you look at the Browns, he was a failure as a Browns quarter or as a coach, but who's a success as a Browns coach? You talk about all the other things they had in his history, his history as an assistant. He is a great, great head coach. I mean, just look at the success they've had. Mac Jones is a good quarterback. Is he an all-pro going forward? Is he going to be the best quarterback out of this draft class? Who knows? But he's a good quarterback. And Belichick is a really, really good coach. Now, Tom Brady's the GOAT as far as quarterbacks go. There's no doubt about that. But I think people just want to jump on Bill Belichick after hearing about him for so much of their lives. Now they can jump on him and try to kick him while he's down. But he'll be back. Patriots will be back.
They weren't good Saturday. But you know who was good Saturday, Caleb? Josh Allen.
Yeah.
We talking about Burrow taking his baby steps last year, and then this year he's kind of like the teenager in that metaphor. If Burrow's a teenager, Josh Allen is like a first-time homeowner with his name on that mailbox. Like he is on the block. He is here to stay. Everybody better get used to him. I think he had like 5 incompletions in that game. Dude just had the game of his life. The weather was no factor for him. Pull up his official stat line: 21 of 25, 308 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 rushes for 66 yards. Rating of 157.6. That's pretty good. I would take that in a playoff start against the Patriots.
And one thing I'll say about Josh Allen, again, he's one of those guys that not a lot of people wanted coming out of the draft class. But he came out, he's like, oh, he's too raw, he can't complete a pass, his completion percentage stinks. Small school, blah, 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 blah. And people just wanted to ignore that he led the league in drops, his team did. Some of the quality he was throwing to wasn't that great. Well, same thing about people he was throwing against, but he had this big arm, this big body. He's, handles press conferences well. He talks well, which is something that you can't overlook. And he just fits what that Buffalo team needs. He just fits what they want and what they need. And I've always said this. The Cam Newton experience in Carolina helped Josh Allen to be what Josh Allen is. Because with McDermott being there when Cam was there initially, he got to see how they developed a guy like Cam, not too dissimilar from Josh Allen. And he got to see if you don't focus on passing early on and you don't get that developed and figure out what you're going to do and ease them in like they did with Josh Allen, give him a lot of play action bootlegs, roll him out, get some easy reads, 1-2 reads, or let him run, then he gets stuck into a habit of running and never really works on that passing. But they've worked on the passing immediately with Josh Allen, and he still ran when he had to. But he has developed very, very well from that draft class. So I think that he is also a success story. Also had a good Senior Bowl week when he was there. And that is something very important coming up. We have a Senior Bowl week not too long, a couple weeks away at this point. Is it a couple weeks away or is it next week?
I think it's in February, is it not?
February? Okay. Yeah, I think it's...
It might be late January. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that's coming up, and that's going to be huge. That
It's a
might
loaded
determine,
roster.
especially the quarterbacks.
Yep.
As far as quarterbacks go, that will be a huge instance because some of the guys have done really well at the Senior Bowl. The most recent, Justin Herbert. Throughout the whole process, Justin Herbert improved, and now Justin Herbert is playing pretty well for the Chargers. So we'll see what happens. All right, next game we
We
got it
are 14 days away from the Senior Bowl.
14 days away. That's exciting. I also like seeing the weigh-ins and things like that. But it's very important, especially this year with all the quarterbacks, because almost all of the eligible quarterbacks are going to be there, except for Malik Willis. So who comes out on top throwing to all this competition, we'll see what happens. We'll have a episode dedicated to that. And talking about the other half of the power couple, the Buccaneers versus the Eagles. This is an outcome that we could expect. There were some issues that we thought might be bigger than they ended up being for this team. Jalen Hurts, not the most accurate in this game. He had some issues getting the ball down and to make it catchable for a lot of times. The offense as a whole just going to look kind of sloppy. There is promise there with Jalen Hurts, but this game was not his best. Again, rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks in the draft process or in the playoffs, it's really difficult for them to excel, especially their first playoff game. Another young quarterback had their first playoff game as well that we'll talk about in a couple of games here. He also struggled. So once you get to playoff football, it's a different game. And Philadelphia, they might have some promise going forward, but today, or not today, but over in wildcard weekend, they hit a brick wall in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I've never been the biggest proponent of Jalen Hurts. You know, in his defense, the Bucs' defense might be the most athletic in the NFL. They've got tremendous defensive line that can get pressure to the quarterback. They've got guys who can go in man and zone coverage and lock down good wide receivers. I mean, Devin White across the middle, they're just stacked on both sides of the ball, really. Um, but, I mean, that's what you run into in the playoffs. You want to be in those situations. You want to have the big games. Definitely one that Hurts is probably not proud of his play, but I mean, Philadelphia tried to scratch and claw all year, squeaked into the playoffs, but Tampa's just too good.
Yeah, I think going forward, the matchup, this upcoming week is going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to get to our preview for that. A lot of interesting matchups here. But Tampa Bay definitely looked good in this game. Next game. This one didn't really. This is one that you got wrong. I got correct here. But it was a coin flip. Didn't feel comfortable either way. The Niners against the Cowboys. And it was a pretty simple game as far as how things went. Cowboys fans are very upset on Twitter and in real life, from my experience over the outcome of this game. There's a lot of blame to go around, but I think really what it comes down to is lack of discipline. I think this game shows why you can't give up stupid penalties and why you have to have a head on your shoulders with some sort of restraint. But the Cowboys didn't have that this game, and they've struggled with that all year long, and that came to bite them in the butt. And the Niners, look, they just held on to the ball. If the Cowboys did not capitalize on the chances they had to score early, and the Niners just said, all right, well, you're not going to get many other chances. And they just ate the clock and kept going and kept going. They had to fight through some injuries, and they still came out on top. But lack of discipline and tons of discipline on the other side helped win this game for the Niners.
Looking at the Cowboys' penalties, they had 14 penalties for 89 yards. The Niners had 9 for 58, so they didn't do great in that department either. But it seemed like the Cowboys' penalties were in the biggest of moments, right? There's situations on third down, and um, the 49ers don't pick it up, but there was some sort of you know, unnecessary roughness or illegal hands to the face call on the Cowboys, and it was an automatic first down. Ends up costing them, potentially a possession and giving second chances to the Niners. And in the playoffs, you can't do that. You can't give people second chances. You can't allow them to have the ball and control possession for longer than they should. And so that's a sign of a good football team is one that doesn't beat itself. And Dallas has been that way the entire season. They've been the most penalized team in the league. And that's their biggest Achilles heel is themselves, in my opinion. We talked about how their division is not as strong as some of the other divisions and how they might get exposed in the playoffs because of that. You look at their record outside of the NFC East, they weren't great, but they were able to bully, Washington and Philly and New York. So it's, I'm sure that Cowboys fans are probably frustrated. We've seen a lot of their former players kind of come out and talk about the current culture and everything. There was some speculation that Jerry Jones might fire McCarthy because he canceled his press conference, and who knows? Dallas is a different. They operate in a different way than the rest of the NFL, specifically because Jerry is so involved in the team's decisions. But another year, another Cowboys early exit after every Cowboys fan has been telling me that this is their year.
Well, one thing I've noticed from Cowboys fans is every year is their year. But when you do that, you set yourself up for a lot of disappointment. But touching on that, some of the biggest penalties, Randy Gregory hugging an offensive lineman there towards the end. What a silly situation there. When you need a stop, and it looks like you're probably going to at least get to force a punt and have some time left in the clock, there's no reason to be tackling an offensive lineman. I just don't know what he was doing. And maybe you say, well, maybe he throws the ball carrier when he's looking at the ball carrier. When he's doing, I don't know. It's just a really silly decision. You talk about the decision for the quarterback run in the middle of the field, right there towards the end. Okay, they get a chance here. They got to clock it, get down, hand the ball to the center instead of hand the ball to the official who's trying to get to the ball. Some morons are out there saying, "Oh, the refs blew it. Look, he ran over our quarterback, so we couldn't get the ball." It's like, no, he's trying to get to the ball so you guys can down it and have a chance. So he tried his best to help you guys get it, but he has to get to a quarterback and a center to get to the ball. Of course, he's not going to have time to down it. He's like, well, he rolled the ball around. What? You can't just put it down wherever it may be.
So my take on that is that midway through the fourth quarter, or I guess the beginning of the fourth quarter, ask any Cowboys fan how they were feeling, and they all felt like they were going to lose by 2 or 3 touchdowns. It wasn't looking great. The Niners had the ball, and then literally everything that the Niners could do to possibly shoot themselves in the foot, they did it. And so that was a game that the Cowboys had no business being in the first place. So after the 49ers did 100 things to try to give the Cowboys the game on a silver platter, instead of just closing it out like you should, some mistakes by Jimmy G, some third and short that you don't convert, different things like that, then the Cowboys are all of a sudden in a position where they have a chance to win it. And so, like, blaming the refs for that whenever the Cowboys themselves didn't show up is just stupid. And that specific situation, you can blame the ref if you want, but I don't like the decision to run up the middle when you don't have timeouts. Give me 2 shots at the end zone, from farther out. I've always thought that it was harder to score when you're at the 20 than you are at like the 30 or 35 at the end of the game, because that spacing allows elite receivers like CeeDee Lamb, like an Amari Cooper, to break free and find open space. It's more space for a defense to have to cover. There's more chance to hit a seam that no one's at, and you've got hook and ladder. You've got certain plays to get out of bounds if you need to. There's different options. But if you run up the middle, then it's a mental game of, okay, there's 15 seconds left. How long can I run? When do I need to down it? And Dak took too long to get down. He saw too much daylight, and the 49ers just kind of let him, okay, you want to run? Let's run. Come on, and we're going to occupy your time and keep you upright, and then we tackle you. We're in no hurry to let you get up and get a play off, or hike the ball and clock it. So just some dysfunctionality there by Dallas.
Yeah, and there were a couple of times where some of Dallas's biggest players didn't come up to make some of their plays. Javon Diggs didn't have a great game, and he was fortunate some of the throws were missed because there were a couple of times where he got burned. And you can talk about the scheme he was in and the play call he was in. But either way, there was some sort of letdown where there were a couple times where Ayuk and other receivers just broke away, and they just didn't get big plays from the Cowboys that they needed. They got an interception that kind of turned things around for a little bit, but you just didn't get the big plays you need to turn that game around. And they didn't get to show off. But in the preview for the next game, we'll talk about some differences in the teams that are in that. This next one, we didn't spend much time talking about it when we were making our predictions. I don't expect we'll spend much time talking about it now. But the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, bon voyage, Big Ben. It's been a time. You've had good times, bad times, but this is the last bad time. Now you get to sail off into the sunset, I guess. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have some mystery ahead of them. What happens now? We don't really know. Not too surprised that the Kansas City Chiefs ran away with this one. 42-21. Pretty very expected outcome. The Steelers are not completely lost. You have to find a quarterback. That's the biggest thing. Got to get a quarterback. You got some changes in your front office that have been happening, some shifting around, but you got to get a quarterback. Good thing is you have a lot of stuff around that quarterback once you get in there. Now, maybe you say, well, we've already got our quarterback. We got Mason Rudolph. Maybe.
No.
But
no.
You definitely have to get somebody.
It's not even a maybe.
I think you're doubting the Rudolph train, man.
It's not even a maybe. No. I mean, we'll bring John David Booty out of retirement if that's the case. But I mean, Mason Rudolph, are you kidding me?
Rudolph, the red-nosed quarterback.
Give me Vinny Testaverde any day of the week. How old is he now? Like 53? Give me Vinny over Rudolph.
Hey, maybe Brett Favre will come back.
That would be cool. I would pay good money to see that, actually. He shows up to the press conference in his Wrangler jeans, his copper fit sleeve on his arm. I could see it.
The first NFL player to wear copper fit on the field.
So I think that my biggest takeaway from this game is that the Chiefs are still really freaking good. It's like people kind of forgot that during the season. They quietly went on like a 9-game streak or something like that. Early on in the season, things weren't going their way. They still end up 12-5, even though they missed Kelsey for a time, missed Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a time, just banged up all over the football field. had some shuffling of their offensive line in the offseason. Creed Humphrey has been a unit. I mean, he deserves
He's a
Rookie of the
stud.
Year votes. One of the best PFF rated centers in the league as a rookie. And the division he plays against, defensive lines aren't. They're not cupcakes. So whenever you can hang 478 total yards against one of the better defenses in the league, that's pretty impressive. So, yep, farewell to Big Ben. What a career from him. And for Mr. Watt, what a year for him.
Yes, TJ Watt played really, really well this year, and it'll forever be one of those situations where I am so angry at the Packers for not drafting him when they had an opportunity. It was one of those guys that I wanted. When coming out of the draft, he was not a slam dunk. He still had a lot of talk about, he's J.J. Watt's brother. I don't know if he's as good as him. And talking about, will he fit in the NFL? Talking about all these things. I think that was the year the Packers took Kevin King and other guys in the second round they traded down. I just remember whoever it was they got, I wanted T.J. Watt because I thought about Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, and T.J. Watt as a rotation unit. I thought that would have been really nice. But anyway, he's made a pretty good career in Pittsburgh. I think he's going to continue. He's just going to get better. And hopefully he stays healthy through all this because that Steelers defense should always be competitive as long as he's there. On to the last game.
Did you watch the Manning-cast?
I did. I didn't catch all of it, so I didn't catch all the guests and things, but I got to watch a little bit of the Manning-cast.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought a couple things about the Manning-cast, and then I thought that Russell Wilson, I could definitely see him getting into commentary, but he's got to slow down a little bit. There were times on there where he was just going on and on and on and on and on and just talking and talking and talking. But there's a lot of cliches in what he said that you hear all the time, and he's just throwing it out there. He was happy to be there. I could absolutely see him getting into it. But there are times where, Peyton and Eli are watching the game, and he's just like talking on and on about these different things. And I don't know if he's like this all the time, but Russell Wilson always comes across as robotic in everything he does. I just wonder if that's how he is.
Eli was wearing the chain that Snoop sent to him in the previous Manningcast episodes. The Rock was a great guest, talking about his days at Miami. I thought that was really cool. It was a unique spin to have the Monday night game between the Rams and Cardinals. In years past, they've done the wild card on Saturday and Sunday, and I've always liked that. I'm not somebody that welcomes change, with open arms. Specifically, the extra seed in the playoffs this year. But I thought that having a game on Monday night and not having, all the wind sucked out of your sails on Sunday after the last game, that was kind of nice. As far as like, travel for teams and like rest for players, I think that one less day is not great, but I don't think it's a make or break for those players as long as they get to play Sunday instead of Saturday, which they do.
Yeah, I think, of course, that's already been factored in. But you hate change so much that you haven't changed your hat, nor have you taken it off since we started the podcast season. So
we won the World Series. This is my lucky hat, Caleb. If I've got
won a World Series, you got a new job.
Hat, I would wear it every day if that meant we did it again.
He wore it to his interview, too. He goes in there. He's like, hello. So, sir, can you take your hat off? No, I can't. You understand? But, the outcome of this game, I thought Matthew Stafford played pretty well. I think people are really quick to jump on Matthew Stafford. I think he's played pretty well given the circumstance and all the things he had to deal with, picking up the offense and just running with it. The whole offense, did no baby steps, just the whole offense. He talk about all these turnovers and this or that. It's like that's what makes him Matthew Stafford. He's a gunslinger. That's what a gunslinger does. I started watching football because of Brett Favre, and there are Brett Favre qualities to Matthew Stafford. He is tough. He's never going to sit out. I remember a game with Matthew Stafford when he was with the Lions. He's like broke like 2 ribs, and so the last drive, like, well, you got to come out, man. You can't play. He's like, no, put me in there. Throws a couple of passes. I think he ran for a rushing touchdown. Got hit pretty hard on that, but they might have even won that game, or they might have been down 21 points. They were down 14 after he scored. I forget, but he's tough, and he's got this arm. He's short stuffing a couple of arms, a couple of throws, and toward later towards the season. So I wonder if he isn't hurt a little bit more than he lets on. But I really like Matthew Stafford. I think that their matchup is one that I'm very excited to talk about with the previews. But this game, Kyler Murray didn't look great. There were a lot of instances where the offense didn't allow him to open up and try some shots, even when they had some opportunities to go do that. There were a lot of checkdowns. There were a couple times where he overthrew screens and short routes that didn't really give the receiver a chance to make the play. Again, young quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, similar situation. Young quarterbacks in their first playoff game, it's tough. And we talked about it. I don't know if I mentioned this when we were going over previews. When McVay lost to Belichick in the Super Bowl, he got out-coached. He wasn't ready for super tight playoff football. And this time around, he's the veteran. Kingsbury's coming in for his first game, and he got out-coached in playoff football. So it's a different game. And the Rams were ready. The Rams had the game plan, and the Rams won. And I'm not too surprised with the outcome, getting out there, things went. I just thought that we'd see more out of Kyler Murray and that team.
Got my cue. Sorry, I got a text. So my
if you have anything to
for
add,
this game was that it was extremely sad for the Cardinals, especially like going into halftime and coming out of halftime. It was like they just kept. Sometimes you have those games where you're just out of a rhythm from the get go, and it just snowballs. And the throw that Kyler made from his own end zone, trying to avoid a safety. And he wants to win so bad. He doesn't want to take that safety, take that sack, and so he's trying to get the ball out and just throws a pick six right at the front gate of the end zone. It's soul crushing as a fan. You don't want to get mad at Kyler. I will say that the Arizona team that we saw the first 11 or 12 weeks of the season was not the Arizona team we saw down the back stretch. And I think that a big part of that is not having DeAndre Hopkins. And a big part of that is not having J.J. Watt for much of that time as well. Hopkins opens up that offense for other guys. If he's on the field, he is, for the opposing team, he's enemy number one. You got to make sure that you get him. You probably have to double him on most occasions. And that opens up things for the young guys, Kirk and Rondale Moore, Edmonds out of the backfield, different things like that. And so when he's not out there, their offense is much more one-dimensional, and it kind of keeps the opposing defense in a place where they can handle whatever Kingsbury throws at them. So they got to get D-Hop healthy. They got to still add some key positions to that team. Specifically, that defense needs a little bit of a boost. I think they really missed Hassan Reddick in his absence this year as an edge rusher, having him and Chandler Jones opposite sides of each other was something that was a luxury to them 2 seasons ago. Um, but I think the Cardinals have a good core. I think that they can be, a serious contender in that division moving forward. It's just making sure that you supplement what you already have in the draft and in free agency, and make some decisions that will give that defense what it needs to take it to the next level.
Definitely hurt by injuries. It'll be interesting to see if they can stay healthy. J.J. Watt already said he's coming back, so I assume as long as they'll have him, but I can't imagine they will. Like, well, we don't actually want you. But they'll definitely bring him back. Missing Hassan Reddick hurt, having that rotational and guy on the other side of Chandler Jones. They didn't have anybody else that could play that role. He did a pretty good job in his new area. So let's go ahead and look at this. We got a little more time here. So, first game we talked about was the Raiders-Bengals. So, it's only fitting the first game we talk about this time includes the Bengals. The Bengals go up against the Tennessee Titans. In Tennessee, of course, the number 1 seed. Derrick Henry's back. I saw a video on Twitter of him coming back, and it was like a triumphant king returning to his land after a years-long journey. Everybody's like, you look up and you see the hope. Everybody's stretching. They're looking up, and they see their king walking amongst all these peasants. They're ready for the battle. They have this upstart kingdom coming to take their throne, but their king is back, and he wields Excalibur, and he's ready for the game. And I think that Tennessee should, quite literally, run away with this. I think that Henry, if he's anything like Cam Akers coming back from injury, he's going to have a big game. Cam Akers looked really nice in the Rams game after coming off of a big Achilles injury. So Derrick Henry coming back from injury, they say he's healthier than he has been throughout the season, even before he got hurt. So as long as he's on his game, I think he's going to be a big, big factor for this team. And I think that as long as they control the ball and their defense plays well, that this should be not an easy win, but I feel pretty confident saying the Titans will win this game.
I think this is a situation where, kind of like the Cardinals, the Bengals were kind of a year ahead of schedule. I don't think people had them having the year that they've had so soon. 2 years removed from having the first pick in the draft and looking awful on both sides of the ball. So I think this is a situation where, the Bengals obviously aren't a finished product. They still have some pieces to add to, some pieces to shuffle around, and some positions where they're going to need more young talent. They're going to need to add and supplement in trades and free agency. And so I think that one of those positions is at linebacker. And I think that that's going to be the tale of the tape this week. And I'll probably end up eating my words because I typically do when I say things like this. But I don't think that the Bengals linebackers can stop the immovable object that is Derrick Henry, especially with fresh legs. So it wouldn't surprise me. It's a cold weather game. I think it's supposed to be like 30 degrees in Nashville today. Would not surprise me if Derrick Henry had 30-plus carries. There's no reason for Tannehill to do anything but play action unless they're behind. And it's difficult to bet against Burrow, especially the way that him and Jamar have been playing. But I think that the Titans at home, their defense is pretty solid as well. I trust Vrabel to put a good game plan together, and I think that the biggest part of that game plan is what you said. Establishing the run game, and it's one of those things where even if you know that they're going to be running and you stack the box, Derrick Henry is so hard to bring down when he has forward momentum. When he lowers that shoulder, I mean, he's getting an additional 2 or 3 yards every single time. So I think it'll be a game that is heavily dominated, excuse me, by possession. And in that situation, you keep the ball out of Burrow and Jamar Chase's hands. I think the Titans are going to win. But I don't feel that confident. This is kind of like the Niners Cowboys last week, where I could really see it going either way. But I do think that the Titans with Derrick Henry will probably get it done.
I agree that time of possession is going to play a pretty big role here, especially when you have some big play ability on the other team. I think time of possession is really going to be the theme of this week in the divisional. I think the teams that maybe are not expected to win need to control that in order to win. I think the Titans, I don't know if they'll give Henry 30 carries. I mean, if they want to, he's a freak. Typically, they want to give people lighter loads, but it's the playoffs. It's Derrick Henry.
He doesn't care.
Things aren't normal for Derrick Henry, so he could drop 30 carries, and he may not have to. We'll see. So it'll be very interesting to see how this team plans, how this Bengals team plans that is ahead of schedule, and how they go forward. Okay, time possession definitely going to play a role in this next game. The Niners going to Green Bay. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers hasn't won. He has not won against the 49ers in playoffs. I think he's 0-2, I believe. But this time they should be the favorites. They should be the favorites to win this game. But again, like Dallas, they have an explosive offense. It sounds like some of the old things we've seen in the past as Packers fans. This is not the matchup I wanted as a Packers fan. Totally biased. I didn't want this because you saw what a team that can control the clock can do to a team that's not capitalizing on their offensive possessions. And the Packers are pretty notorious for starting off slow. And a team like the Niners, you can't do that. I think where this game should be different than the Cowboys game is they should be able to capitalize on their offensive possessions better than the Cowboys did. And if they can do that, I think they have a chance to beat the Niners. I think that the Packers defense should be able to make some plays here. An interesting game, an exciting game in Green Bay. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have the best game of his career. And I do think that Aaron Rodgers gets this win against the Niners, and they go on to the next round. Packers win. Totally unbiased.
This is an interesting game, obviously because of where it's going to be played at in Green Bay. We talked about weather in the playoffs. Looking at the forecast for Green Bay today, it looks like they're going to get about an inch of snow in the coming hour, and then it's going to just be insanely cold. No precipitation, but at game time it should be 11 degrees. That's rough. So I think that this is a situation where the 49ers actually present a great matchup for the Packers. I don't know that the 49ers would pose that much of a threat to a team like Tampa if they had to go to Tampa, but because they're going to Green Bay and a situation where I think that 49ers are going to run the ball as much as they possibly can, and let Jimmy G kind of like Tannehill. You don't want him to be in a situation where he is trying not to screw the team over in the passing game. They're more game manager type of quarterbacks. And so I think that the 49ers are going to establish a run game that could pose a legitimate threat to the Packers. Whoever takes care of the football is going to win this game. But I do think that the Packers are too good of a team to lose this one at home. So I got them advancing to the NFC Championship game.
Well, I will say one of the wild cards. Assuming Trey Lance is healthy and good to go, I think there is a very real chance that he gets on the field for some read option, some moving the quarterback, because the Packers, Preston Smith, especially this year, has been done a really poor job of containing. A lot of the big games that they've given up has to do with not being able to contain one side or not being able to force balls back inside, letting quarterbacks get out and making plays. And if that happens in this game, in this situation, with the run game on top of that, bring in Lance for some, more athletic plays outside the pocket, I think that would be rough for the Packers to keep up with. So I wouldn't be surprised they try to get him out there to change it up a little bit, change the game plan up, realize the Packers are not great at containing. But they got a good defense. We'll see what happens. They are too good to lose this game, or they should be too good to lose this game. But this Niners team, they're hot. They came in hot. Going into playoffs is all about being hot. And right now, they got talent. They got steam. We'll see what happens. Okay. This one's really interesting. This one's the coin flip for me. And some say it shouldn't be. But the Rams going to Tampa, that's a really interesting game. Because you would think that Tampa is the easy go-to, but this Rams team is pretty loaded. Stafford's a good quarterback. This is not a full 100% Rams team, or not a full 100% Tampa Bay team, nor is it a full 100% Rams team. But as far as receiving goes, you have the opportunity to let Jalen Ramsey stay on Mike Evans all game. Because who else are they going to throw to? So then it's going to come down to who else is going to be the ones to beat the Rams. And then is Gronk going to have a big game? Who's going to be that number 2 X factor for the Bucs? Because they got to have somebody come up. Because I can't imagine that Ramsey's not around Mike Evans all game. I just can't imagine it. It would shock me. And then from there, as you're waiting for the other guys to come up, Aaron Donald's going to be breathing down Tom Brady's neck. So it's a very interesting matchup for the Bucs and the Rams. And I really don't know. I don't feel comfortable picking either one.
It's a coin flip.
What do you think?
Oh, I think, we talked about momentum, getting hot at the right time. I think the Rams are looking pretty solid at the right time. I think the Bills are another team that they have a chip on their shoulder. And that's something you always look for in playoff atmosphere. A lot of the momentum in the playoffs is mental. You look at the Bucs last year and how they didn't even win their division and still went on a run and won the Super Bowl. People kind of didn't see that coming. I think that in this particular game, it's pretty even across the board. The Bucs are at home. They're probably going to be more in their element there, but it does come down to quarterback play, in my opinion. And although I love Stafford, I've always loved Stafford. I've respected him for the player he is, and I've often argued that he's one of the more elite, top shelf talents in the NFL. He was just in a really crappy situation in Detroit. I've been saying for weeks now that I don't think he's 100%. I think that his injuries have really added up this season. And so for that reason, I got the Bucs winning this one. I think that the Bucks advance and go for a rematch versus the Packers in an NFC Championship game next week.
I could definitely see that happening, and it's a coin toss. Um, I don't have a coin near me, or I would actually toss one right now. Uh, with a team with a complicated offense, Matthew Stafford's had some turnovers. You think Todd Bowles is going to dial up some great packages and try to confuse Matthew Stafford. I don't think he'll necessarily be confused, but I do think there's going to be times where they just can't get the ball off to Cooper Kupp and they can't get the ball where they need to get it. But I don't know. I'm just feeling the Rams right now. I feel like they're getting hot. I feel if you can get a good game out of Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and they could really lead the rest of that team, I feel like that's huge because you got to get to Brady. You got to make sure that Mike Evans can't get the ball and then make sure you don't get beat elsewhere. So I'm going to say the Rams win this one, but it's close. This might be a field goal game. This might be a one touchdown game just towards the end that kind of cracks it open a little bit. But this is a close one. I don't feel comfortable about it, but I got to catch up. You know, I'm down a couple of picks here, so I gotta catch up. And this one's one that could be interesting because that sets up for a big potential matchup with Matthew Stafford and Green Bay, and that would be very interesting because I think he and Aaron Rodgers are very opposite people. And I have a theory that Matthew Stafford might hate Aaron Rodgers, but I can get to that if that happens to be the case. So we'll talk about that.
There's
later.
probably some bitterness there, not off the field, but on the field. He's probably tired of getting kicked around. I know the Bears are. So
yeah. So we'll talk about that later. I think there's a lot of meat to my theory, so we'll talk about that another time. And the last game, another coin flip for me because I don't feel comfortable with either of these games. Woo! The Bills going to Kansas City.
Football this weekend is all I got to say.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. This is the last game of the weekend, and reasonably so. The Chiefs are getting back hot. They are on that streak. They are back to being the Chiefs. While they were not the Chiefs, they dropped some games at home to, I believe, the Raiders and the Chargers. But now they are the Chiefs at home, playing hot against another team that's hot. The Bills, one of your favorite teams here. What is the outcome? I don't really know. You have two high-powered passing game with the Bills. The secondary is not the defense is not the key point for the Chiefs, and they have a high-powered offense. Could this be a game that just points galore? Could this be a less explosive game? Everybody goes into it thinking it's going to be like 45-43 and ends up being, 21-14. I'm not exactly sure what to expect from this game. My heart is telling me to go with Buffalo. But my brain's saying, dude, it's the Chiefs, man. Like, this is you can't bet against them right now. So I'm going to go with the Bills, but I want to hear what you got.
All right, so let me preface this by saying that I am not attaching money to this pick. So that obviously changes my thought process, right? If you told me that, Austin, if you pick this game right, you're going to win $1 million, then I feel like I would absolutely pick the Chiefs at home. You don't bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and that crazy, crazy talented offense. But I don't have money on this game, and I'm going to go with my heart and take the Buffalo Bills on the road. I think that the Bills are a much better team than what their record lets on. My preseason pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl was Buffalo. I love their team. You know, you look at end of the season, their defense is first in total yards allowed, first in passing yards allowed, first in points allowed, and first in third down percentage. The Chiefs' defense, 27th in total yards allowed, 27th in passing yards allowed, 8th in points given up, and 18th in third down percentage. So the Bills have a top 10 offense and probably the best, if not top 5 defenses in the league. I love Patrick Mahomes, man. It's tough to bet against that guy, especially when he has Tyreek and Travis Kelce. But I just love this Bills team. I believe in McDermott, a defensive-minded head coach, to build a game plan to not necessarily stop the Chiefs from scoring, but to keep the ball in Buffalo's hands and keep them out of situations where they can just tack on. So, I mean, the Bills have went on, a 5-game win streak, and we've talked about that momentum and getting hot at the right time. A lot of crazy things have happened in sports this year. The Braves won the freaking World Series. Like, give me the Bills, the team of the 90s that just never did it. Give me the Bills in the AFC Championship game. They take down Goliath and advance to the AFC Championship game.
That would be a very interesting outcome, and I can't wait to watch these games this weekend. Well, that wraps up our preview. Man, I'm excited. I got chills. It's also because my room is really cold right now, but also the games being as exciting as they are is exciting me. Well, if you happen to tune in, you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. We do this every week, unless there's like a crazy thing that happens and we don't do it, but we'll let you know. If you agree or disagree with anything we said, make sure you leave a comment wherever that may be. This has been the Hogmolly Hustle. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, folks.